alarm was set, so we're all good. Um, okay, so you could go get an ultrasound and you could actually see whether or not the arterial walls had an accumulation of plaque. So that would be another way of determining, are you at risk for a heart attack or stroke? So these diagnostics are very important. Another one would be for men that are experiencing erectile dysfunction or reduced sexual performance. So many times, erectile dysfunction is psychological, but about 60% of the time, it is a early indicator of cardiovascular disease. So this is something that should not be taken lightly. Now, often men think of erectile dysfunction as being related to testosterone, and low testosterone levels are only part of the problem. Um, so you can, clinically, you can give a man testosterone and he doesn't see any change in sexual function. And this is because there's a buildup of plaque in the arteries, there's obstruction, reduced blood flow, and this needs to be corrected in order to have normal performance. So some of the recommendations that we're going to talk about today, if a man is suffering from erectile dysfunction, these recommendations will actually help him quite a bit and also get at the root cause of what's going on in the first place, and that is taking care of the heart and cardiovascular health. Okay, so how does the plaque get there? There are a number of different causes, but the one I thought we would really focus in on today is insulin resistance. And this is going to surprise some people and not others, but when we have, especially here in the West, diets of refined carbohydrates, excess amount of sugar that's in the food, what we see is progressive glycation, which is damage of tissue in the body by elevated blood sugar. And we see that the body's ability to respond to insulin decreases over time. So insulin resistance changes as a function with time. And what's so interesting about this is that insulin resistance then can be linked to not only what would be obvious as diabetes, type 2 and then type 1 diabetes, but also cardiovascular disease. So this is, for those that are interested, this is a really interesting article that gets into this in quite a bit more detail, but it will in fact show the link between elevated levels, elevated blood sugar levels, insulin resistance, and hypertension, which is, of course, high blood pressure. So what this means is that if we want to, if someone is suffering from high blood pressure and they have an accumulation of arterial plaque, we start to see what it is that we need to do to get a temporary improvement in blood pressure. So someone that has high blood pressure, let's say you've got 160 over 100, right? You're way into the risk zone. What can you do immediately to get your blood pressure under control, right? We are going to talk about that today. But then more importantly, what can you do to prevent this problem from coming back, and how can you improve the health of your arteries so you won't need these Band-Aids? We're going to talk about all of those things. But this is very important because what it's showing is that if we want to reduce the accumulation of arterial plaque, maintain the health of arterial walls, the endothelial lining, that we need to get our blood sugar levels under control. And we need to improve our response to insulin. And there's going to be a number of ways that we can do that. So let's talk about one other factor here, and that's going to be inflammation. So, as I mentioned, there are a number of different inflammatory markers, such as fibrinogen and homocysteine, which are directly linked to heart disease. So, this is a study that was done on copper peptide, and copper peptide, which we know are X39 patch elevates. Copper peptide is linked to a number of very important things in the body, but one is that copper peptide functions as an antioxidant and also an anti-inflammatory. And one of the markers that copper peptide reduces is fibrinogen. Now, interestingly, what we saw with COVID-19, and by the way, we don't make any medical claims about our product, so I am in no way stating that X39 could be used to prevent heart disease. We haven't done a study on it. We're not making that claim. It's a wellness product. But what's been done with injections of copper peptide is to reduce fibrinogen levels. And so it says right over here, copper peptide suppresses the production of interleukin 6, and interleukin 6 is what stimulates the production or regulation of fibrinogen. So it's pretty obvious. If you can restore or elevate your copper peptide levels, you can reduce an inflammatory marker which is associated with heart disease. So that would be super important. But let's go back and talk about insulin resistance now. And one of the places I want to start with this, actually, I'm going to change my mind here. One of the places I think I want to start with this is going to be with glutathione and alpha-lipoic acid. And I'll pull it up over here. Okay, so a number of years ago, back in 2005, we had the energy patches and Ice Wave, and I was fortunate enough to meet a scientist in San Francisco, California, who is doing work on the use of antioxidants in the treatment of diabetes, both type 1 and type 2. And what he was doing was using alpha-lipoic acid, and it was called a controlled release alpha-lipoic acid. And he was giving people 300 milligrams of alpha-lipoic acid 4 times per day. And what he found, which is very consistent with the research, is that alpha-lipoic acid moves sugar through the body, bypassing the need for insulin. So the insulin is never released. So there's 2 critical antioxidants here in improving insulin resistance and getting blood sugar under control, and they are alpha-lipoic acid and glutathione. So meaning, if you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes, you're going to have low levels of alpha-lipoic acid and glutathione. And conversely, if you elevate alpha-lipoic acid and glutathione, it is and can be therapeutic. So in his study, he found that type 1 diabetics got a 60 to 65% reduction in their need for insulin. And that's life-changing when you're depending upon injections of insulin. This is life-changing information. So it says right here, this study supports the use of alpha-lipoic acid as an antioxidant in the care of diabetic patients. Now we're talking about heart health, but because insulin is connected to heart disease, obviously, we see the connection now. We can use alpha-lipoic acid and glutathione to get our blood sugar levels under control, and this is going to reduce the levels of oxidative stress in the body and therefore protect our arterial health. Okay. So let's go back over here to a moment, and we're going to talk about another antioxidant called carnosine. And carnosine is interesting because it is not only an antioxidant, but it protects the telomeres, so it has life extension effects, but it's the most powerful anti-glycation nutrient that's known. So what that means is that when we get high levels of sugar, and of course we're at risk for diabetes and heart disease, carnosine can protect the cells in the body from damage. It's the most powerful one that's been found. So this was a nice article from Life Extension that showed some of the many, many benefits of carnosine. Now, of course, this is done with oral carnosine supplementation. Carnosine is a dipeptide, and if someone is a vegan, they may have low levels of carnosine. The key amino acid in making carnosine is alanine, and you want to take a form called beta-alanine, and the beta-alanine is used to make peptides. So you could find carnosine and alanine in red meat. So if someone has a diet low in red meat for some reasons, some good reasons, they may want to supplement with beta-alanine just to be sure. But you can see right here, carnosine lowers blood glucose. So it is going to, if you're taking an alanine supplement to elevate carnosine, because we don't make medical claims about our products, that's a way to help to protect you. We talk a lot about the studies that we've done with carnosine with cognition and improving athletic performance, but we know that long-term, carnosine can potentially keep people younger longer. And here it is right here. Carnosine is a natural antioxidant and anti-glycation substance, so it'll predominantly protect the brain and the heart. Carnosine helps prevent cardiovascular damage and brain injury through a host of mechanisms, but basically because we find high levels of carnosine in the heart, this is going to protect the heart from oxidation, and then, of course, as a result, we're not going to see that inflammatory stress. Okay. Let's take a look at another study here, and when we're looking at what do we see any evidence in the use of carnosine in the health of the heart, there are a whole host of studies. Quite a few studies, not surprisingly, have been done on mice and rats, but there's certainly plenty of studies that have been done on human beings. So when we look at animal studies, they may or may not be indicative of what type of results we might see in human beings. But fortunately, there are enough studies on carnosine in human beings where we can say definitively, yes, carnosine does in fact play a role of protecting the heart from damage. So this is a very good study if you want to take a look at it, but it gets into how much carnosine is needed to see this effect. And if you're wondering, a good supplement might be 1,000 milligrams of carnosine per day. You have to be careful with taking too much carnosine. Here we go. You want to be careful about taking too much carnosine because carnosine can cause a rash on the skin, and if you take too much, and it can be a little painful. it can cause almost something very similar to a niacin flush. So I would start small with maybe 500 milligrams of beta alanine, and then maybe go up to 1,000 milligrams of beta alanine to support your carnosine levels. Um, but this is really interesting information because it does get into the mechanisms by which carnosine actually does protect the heart. Another mechanism here, I'll just mention it briefly as an aside, is carnosine as a pH buffer. And I'm very interested in looking at the use of carnosine as a treatment and preventative for cancer. Because one of the things we see with cancer cells is that they produce a lot of lactic acid. And when people exercise, if you're exercising hard, you know that you're sore the next day, and this is from lactic acid. And when you elevate your carnosine, it helps to act as a buffer to neutralize that lactic acid. So my suspicion is that there is a role for the use of carnosine in protecting people from cancer, maybe even as a therapeutic. It wouldn't be something that I would rely on, but it's a piece of the puzzle. I'll look at it that way. Okay. Let's talk about glutathione for a minute. And we may not normally think of glutathione as being used for maintaining the health of the heart, but because glutathione is body's master antioxidant and it's found everywhere, almost everywhere in the human body, it tells us that glutathione is critically important to our health and longevity. So, in a similar fashion to lipoic acid, we see that glutathione assists in maintaining healthy blood sugar levels in the body. Interestingly enough, there was a study that I saw on erectile function in men, and men that have better erectile function have higher levels of glutathione. And also, there's a correlation between glutathione and testosterone levels. And this is because glutathione, and also there's similar data on alpha lipoic acid, these antioxidants can protect the testicles from oxidative stress and help maintain a man's testosterone levels. So, of course, we know glutathione and lipoic acid are also critically important for the health of the skin. So this is to say that if you're interested in maintaining your cardiovascular health and balancing out your insulin response, elevating your glutathione levels and your lipoic acid levels is going to have a whole host of benefits. It's going to balance out your blood sugar. You're going to feel better. You're going to have better quality skin, better functioning immune system, better cognitive function, recovery from exercise. Huge benefits here from elevating glutathione and lipoic acid. So you may initially do this to support the health of your heart, but there's going to be all these ancillary benefits. Okay, now let's get into the question of what do you do if you already have arterial plaque and you already have high blood pressure. What can you do? Well, the good news is that there are things that will work immediately. And we're going to talk about several of those things now. And by the way, we're also going to talk about what studies we've done with our LifeWave patches. I don't want to forget about that. That show we can use patches to have a beneficial effect on the heart. We are going to talk about those studies. But one natural substance that's been known maybe for thousands of years to have beneficial effects on the heart, and it's garlic. And probably more specifically an aged garlic extract that's rich in a compound called allicin. But garlic has, unless you're allergic to it, garlic has consistently been shown to reduce blood pressure, and also studies are showing it can be used to reduce arterial plaque. You can also use garlic to elevate nitric oxide. So let's go back to the example that we used right in the very beginning. Let's say that you have high blood pressure and you have a restriction here that is impeding blood flow, and this is what's driving your blood pressure up. If you take, let's say, 1,000 milligrams, 1,200 milligrams of a garlic extract, along with 2,000 milligrams with vitamin C, you can triple your nitric oxide levels. Nitric oxide, of course, is a vasodilator and will cause an expansion of the blood vessels, reducing arterial pressure. So this is really important because it will gives you a way to start to immediately reduce your blood pressure. It may take a little while of repeated use, but you can start to see your blood pressure come down. I'm going to give you also a whole host of things that you can use. But anyway, an important thing here is that in the short term, garlic and vitamin C elevate nitric oxide, reduce blood pressure. In the long term, garlic, some studies show that it can reduce high cholesterol levels, which cause damage to your endothelial lining. But some studies also show that it can reduce arterial plaque, helping to eliminate the problem in the first place. So that's really, really good news. I'm going to show you some other things, though, here, too. Now, I have been really excited about research that we're doing here on taurine. And taurine is a amino acid, and it's a very simple amino acid. And it's found in the brain, the heart, and in men it's found in the genitals. And what's interesting is that as important as taurine seems to be, the method by which taurine acts in the body is not completely understood. And taurine also declines with age. So I would say that there is a link between taurine and aging. We may even see life-extending effects by elevating taurine over time. So it's not, even though it's a simple molecule, I would not dismiss its importance. Now, what does this have to do with heart disease? Well, many studies have shown that taurine is not only safe because it's an amino acid, it is more effective than blood pressure medication. This, if you have high blood pressure, this actually would be the first thing I would recommend that you try, along with a number of other things, but I would put this very, very high on the list. The dosing is, again, speak with your doctor, but the dosing is roughly 3 to 5 grams of taurine per day. So, for example, you might take 1,000 milligrams of taurine 3 to 5 times per day. Or maybe you take 1 gram of taurine with breakfast, 1 gram with lunch, and then 2 grams at dinner. You're going to find that the taurine helps your body to relax. So if you're under a lot of stress, taurine can help to relax the nervous system, but it gives dramatic reduction in high blood pressure. It can even get people back into a normal range. So I would definitely speak with your doctor about including taurine in an overall program of overall program of diet, exercise, and supplementation. It's very, very high on the list. All right, let's go through some other things here. In addition to some of the things that we've already talked about, I would also recommend fasting. And here's the importance of fasting. And again, the recommendations would be a little bit different for men than for women. But the simple thing is fasting induces autophagy, and fasting helps your body get control over its blood sugar. So we're going to accomplish a couple things with fasting. The first thing is it's going to be completely free, and it helps to normalize and give you better control over your insulin sensitivity, gives you improved insulin sensitivity, and more stable blood sugar levels. So you're going to be able to interrupt the problem where it starts. The other thing is that when you fast, you're going to tear down damaged tissue in the body, and it's going to facilitate the removal of arterial plaque. So fasting creates an environment in your body that is conducive to cardiovascular health. And a ton of information there we don't have time to get into. Let's skip ahead to some of these other things. When we're talking about removing arterial plaque, which is going to be something you want to focus in on if you have high blood pressure, you have a number of different choices here with all very, very good clinical evidence. So, for example, vitamin D, you want to speak with your doctor about taking 5,000 IUs of vitamin D daily, because this helps with the elasticity of the arteries. It keeps them supple instead of becoming stiff. Also, this supplement Cyruta, which is a buckwheat seed extract, has been shown to remove arterial plaque. There was a study, I didn't pull it up here just in the interest of time. There's a study with pomegranate extract. So, for thousands of years, pomegranate goes back to ancient Egypt. And it was known as being something good for your heart. So I think the Egyptians, if they could build the pyramids, they could probably identify a fruit that's good for the heart. And there's an important reason for this. It's been shown that pomegranate extract will, in fact, remove arterial plaque. There's a study that shows if you take pomegranate extract for 6 to 9 months, you can completely remove the arterial plaque and eliminate the need for surgery, bypass surgery. So it's one of the most powerful natural substances known for heart health, and this is because of its ability to remove arterial plaque. And it's a shame that cardiologists are not taught this, because it saves people's lives. Niacin, of course, has been around a long time, and it's very well known. There's different forms of niacin. You've got to speak with your doctor about this, but it's very, very well known that niacin can improve the strength of the arteries and also lower cholesterol. Niacin will, of course, produce what's called the niacin flush, which is uncomfortable, and there's other forms of niacin, but they may or may not have the cardiovascular benefits. So speak with your doctor about that. Now, another thing that lowers blood pressure immediately is magnesium, but there's a little bit of a trick here. If you're looking at just magnesium for overall health, then a magnesium glycinate would be a good form to take. However, if you have high blood pressure, I'd recommend taking magnesium threonate. Magnesium threonate will give you an immediate effect at making you extremely relaxed. As a result, it will lower your blood pressure. Another thing that you can do is you can take a hot bath in Epsom salts, which of course is magnesium, And you'll notice that your blood pressure will come down in a hot bath of magnesium. The magnesium can go directly into the blood. There's also magnesium gel, which you apply to your skin, and this allows the magnesium to go directly into the blood. It'll elevate magnesium very rapidly, but magnesium is a very simple, safe way to lower blood pressure. And then some of these other recommendations that we have already talked about. Just one or two other things before we wrap up on this section is it's worth investigating ginkgo biloba and black ginger. Now, on ginkgo, there's products on the market that are either fake or they don't have the real active ingredients, so you want to use a reputable company. But ginkgo is well known for improving blood flow. Black ginger as well. It's a treatment for erectile dysfunction because it improves blood flow. And black ginger also can help to reduce blood pressure. So these are all some natural things that you have options on. Again, I would definitely recommend that you get some guidance from your healthcare practitioner, find out what's good for you. But you have a whole arsenal of